In just one relentless week, the world's sense of security shattered. It started with breaking news alerts flashing across every screen, an unexpected missile test in East Asia, cyber attacks crippling major financial institutions in Europe, and sudden military mobilizations along tense, forgotten borders. Social media exploded with fear and speculation. News anchors delivered updates with grave urgency. Overnight, stock markets plunged, wiping out billions as investors scrambled for safe havens. Governments from Washington to Warsaw convened emergency meetings, putting military forces on high alert. Sirens wailed in city centers as ordinary people, just like you and me, rushed to stock up on essentials, unsure of what tomorrow might bring. The air grew thick with anxiety. World leaders issued stern warnings calling for calm, but their words felt hollow. In just 7 days, the fragile balance that held our world together seemed to unravel completely. Why now? What triggered this sudden cascade of crises, and what does it mean for the future of global peace? The world is watching, waiting, and wondering what comes next. Just a few decades ago, the world celebrated the end of the Cold War. There was so much hope and optimism. Borders opened, economies flourished, and the threat of a global conflict seemed to fade into history books. But beneath the surface, new tensions were simmering. Over the past year, military buildups quietly accelerated. Warships started patrolling disputed waters, fighter jets buzzed borders, and nations poured billions into advanced weaponry. Old alliances fractured while new, uneasy partnerships formed, slowly shifting the global balance of power. Meanwhile, a shadow war was already raging online. State-sponsored hackers targeted power grids, banks, and government networks, exposing vulnerabilities that left entire nations on edge. Political leaders, once committed to diplomacy, began trading threats and accusations, fueling nationalist fervor and deepening divides. The language of cooperation gave way to suspicion and blame. The signs were all there. Did we just ignore them for too long? As the world reveled in post-Cold War peace, the seeds of today's crisis were quietly taking root. Now, with tensions at a boiling point, we're forced to confront a terrifying reality. The era of global stability may be slipping away, replaced by uncertainty and fear. As the world teeters on the edge, the major players are moving with calculated urgency, each driven by its own motives, fears, and ambitions. The United States has ramped up its military readiness, deploying carrier groups and reinforcing alliances in both Europe and the Pacific. Publicly, U.S. leaders talk about defending democracy and deterring aggression. But behind closed doors, officials worry about losing global influence and the credibility of American power. Their intelligence agencies are on high alert, monitoring cyber threats and unconventional warfare around the clock. China is projecting strength, conducting large-scale military exercises and tightening its control over critical trade routes in the South China Sea and beyond. Beijing's leadership frames these actions as defensive, all about protecting sovereignty and national pride. Yet behind the scenes, China is testing the resolve of its rivals and actively seeking to reshape the global order in its favor. Russia is flexing its muscles along its western borders, mobilizing troops and stoking nationalist sentiment. Moscow's public rhetoric is defiant, blaming the West for escalating tensions. Privately, though, Russian strategists see this as an opportunity to reclaim lost influence and challenge NATO's expansion. Speaking of which, NATO is scrambling to reassure its member states, activating rapid response forces and holding emergency summits. And it's not just them. Regional powers, like Iran, North Korea, and India, are watching closely, making their own preparations. Every superpower has its reasons, and its red lines. The world's fate may hinge on who blinks first. The very nature of war is evolving faster than ever before. Gone are the days when conflict was just about tanks rolling across borders or soldiers dug into muddy trenches. Today, the front lines are often invisible, and the weapons are as likely to be lines of code as they are bullets and bombs. Artificial intelligence now powers surveillance systems, missile guidance, and even autonomous combat drones capable of making split-second, life-or-death decisions without human input. Drones, from tiny quadcopters to high-altitude predators, can strike targets with pinpoint precision or swarm in overwhelming numbers, making traditional defenses almost obsolete. Cyber warfare has become a daily reality, with hackers able to cripple power grids, disrupt financial markets, and steal state secrets from thousands of miles away. Space has become the new high ground. Nations are racing to deploy satellites that can spy, jam communications, or even disable enemy assets with directed energy weapons. And let's not forget economic warfare. Sanctions, trade embargoes, and currency manipulation can devastate entire economies without a single shot being fired. The old rules of engagement simply no longer apply. The battlefield is everywhere and nowhere all at once. Tomorrow's war may be fought without a single shot, until it isn't. In this new era, the first sign of conflict could be a blackout, a market crash, or a silent satellite falling from the sky. The world must adapt, or risk being left defenseless. Across the globe, the response to these rising tensions is as varied as the nations themselves. In some countries, governments have launched large-scale military drills, testing their readiness and sending unmistakable signals to both allies and adversaries. Civil defense sirens have echoed in city streets, and emergency broadcasts are urging citizens to prepare for the unexpected. Supermarket shelves are emptying quickly as people stockpile essentials: water, food, batteries, just in case. Online, prepping communities are swelling with new members, all trading tips on survival and self-defense. Financial markets remain incredibly volatile, with investors fleeing to gold and other traditional safe havens. Insurance companies are quietly updating their risk models, while tech firms scramble to patch vulnerabilities against the next wave of cyber attacks. In schools and workplaces, drills for everything from blackouts to cyber breaches are becoming routine. Yet, not everyone is ready to face the possibility of conflict. In many places, leaders are downplaying the threat, urging calm and insisting that diplomacy will prevail. Citizens are clinging to normalcy, going about their daily lives and hoping this crisis will just pass. Some see the warnings as overblown, nothing more than media hype or political posturing. For some, it's a wake-up call. For others, it's unthinkable. The world stands divided between those who prepare for the worst and those who still hope for the best. The greatest danger in today's tense climate isn't just deliberate aggression, it's miscalculation. With so many militaries on high alert and so many new technologies in play, a single mistake or a misunderstood signal could trigger a rapid, uncontrollable escalation. The risk of an accidental conflict is higher than it has ever been, especially as nuclear-armed states maneuver in close proximity to one another. One wrong move could unleash devastation on a scale we haven't seen in generations. Beyond the battlefield, the threat of economic collapse looms large. Sanctions, cyber attacks, and disrupted supply chains could send global markets into a freefall, wiping out jobs and savings overnight. The instability that would follow could fuel massive humanitarian crises, with millions potentially displaced by conflict, hunger, or economic ruin. World leaders are hoping that deterrence and diplomacy will keep disaster at bay, but the fear remains. Are we sleepwalking into a catastrophe? The line between peace and chaos has never been thinner. As the world systems strain under the pressure, the risk of a runaway crisis grows. The question now is whether humanity can pull back from the brink, or if we're already too close to the edge to turn back. But you know what? We've been here before. In 1914, a single assassination spiraled into World War I. In 1939, unchecked aggression plunged the world into another devastating conflict. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the entire world held its breath as superpowers teetered on the very edge of nuclear war. Each time, miscalculation and pride nearly led to catastrophe. But history also shows us the power of restraint, of dialogue, and of last-minute diplomacy. The lesson is clear. Brinkmanship is an incredibly dangerous game, and the cost of failure is unimaginable. Today, the stakes are even higher, with faster weapons, more fragile economies, and a hyper-connected world. Will we learn from the past, or are we doomed to repeat its mistakes? The answer may decide the fate of our future. As the world stands on this knife's edge, several futures are possible. Escalation could come swiftly, a misstep, a provocation, or a cyber attack spiraling out of control, plunging nations into open conflict. Alternatively, back-channel negotiations and urgent diplomacy might cool tempers, leading to fragile ceasefires or even new treaties. There's also the possibility of a prolonged standoff, a new Cold War defined by arms races, proxy conflicts, and constant tension, but without that direct, catastrophic confrontation. The key flashpoints to watch are disputed borders, cyber incidents targeting critical infrastructure, and of course, the rhetoric of world leaders. The decisions they make in the coming weeks, whether to mobilize troops, impose sanctions, or open diplomatic channels, will shape the path ahead. The world's fate may hinge on restraint, wisdom, and the willingness to compromise. The next move could very well decide the century. Are you ready for what comes next? In a world where every headline could signal a turning point, staying informed and prepared has never been more important. The story is still unfolding. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis helpful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more updates on this developing situation. Stay safe and stay informed.